Good morning and welcome to the Talk of the Town. My guest this morning is Dhanusha Pathirana, economist. Good morning, Dhanusha.
Good morning, Sonali.
Dhanusha, the 2024 budget envisages a revenue of 4.1 trillion rupees and an expenditure of 7 trillion rupees. The main purpose of a budget is fiscal consolidation and to address key economic issues. Very briefly, is this being done? Is this being envisaged?
Yeah, Sonali, absolutely not. Because one thing, the fiscal consolidation is compromised here with this budget. Because as we see, the fiscal deficit would move up to over 9% or up to around 9.1% if we include the capital expenditure or the bank recapitalization expenditure that is allocated, that is around 450 billion. So if we take all that expenditure and the gap between revenue, the deficit will push up to 9% from 8.5% 2023. So this is worsening the fiscal consolidation front of the government. And then secondly, as you correctly raised, that whether the government or the budget is addressing the key economic issues right now we are facing. So to name them is obviously the absolutely high price level, the collapsing living conditions of the public. So which means the absolutely high poverty levels, which is over 30%, and also the collapsing productive structure, where we see a large number of factories are being closed down as a result, increase in unemployment, and also we see a brain drain where the educated class is escaping this sinking ship. So now whether the budget is addressing these issues, as far as I see, it is making things worse. Because firstly, we see that the indirect to direct tax ratio is increasing. That is, more indirect taxes are expected out of this budget, where taxes on goods and services, income from that is expected to move up by as much as 6 to 2%, whereas the income taxes would move up only right 25%. So what we are seeing is that people who are already suffering under extremely high prices their suffering will be further increased, because the price level will move up. Obviously, when indirect taxes are rising, the cost of taxation will be pushed up by increasing price levels, which will ultimately the consumer will have to pay, and they cannot evade the taxes, just like what we have seen. But because what the IMF had said or demanded the government is three things. One is tax administration, that is to raise taxes. They have clearly demanded to address the tax evasion issue, and then phase off the tax holidays. These are the key two measures, including tax administration, streamlining tax administration. Those are the three measures which the IMF proposed, how to improve the tax revenue. But they have completely neglected all that, completely put that aside. There's not a word about that in the budget. In the budget statement or these technical details, nothing about that, and they have directly gone and put the entire burden of the public, where now already the public have a broken back with this sky high living costs, and now they have made things worse. Right. So that is what I can say briefly about on.
Recently, cabinet approval was granted to increase VAT from 15% to 18% from next year. Now, when VAT is increased, the prices of goods and services increase, inflation will also increase.
Exactly.
So how do we keep inflation at bay? Because this is one of the key promises that the government made.
Yes, so that is why I think, going back to the IMF demands, those demands, at least at that level, wouldn't cause inflation. Now, they've already raised prices by collapsing the currency and then raising the prices of public utilities to market levels. They have basically increased the price level by 2 to 3 times. This is the price level which the normal average people face, and also the production costs. Now they made things matters even worse by going down that same path by imposing taxes on goods and services, which will increase the prices, which is completely against what the IMF has demanded. So one thing we also, I think, a couple of things we need to focus is that this will also increase the interest rates and put pressure on the currency, again deteriorating the external competitive capacity of the productive sector of the private sector. And then on the other hand, we have to see where this money is going. So budget deficit is 2.8 trillion, roughly 2.85 trillion, with recapitalization of the bank expenditure. Almost 90 or 93% of that is going into financing the interest cost, which is 2,650 billion. And out of that, roughly 2,500 billion is going into servicing the domestic debt interest cost. So whereas this government said by slashing the EPF they are going to make domestic debt sustainable, but what has happened is that it increased the domestic debt interest cost, and now they are taxing the normal people, average people, and paying the interest cost of the people who are holding the bonds. So which is, as we know, is the corporate or the private sector business, or the elite, the capital holding elite. So they are holding the domestic debt, and now they're taxing the normal people to the bottom, and then paying the interest payments of these people who are holding on to the bonds.
Dhanusha, steering the country forward is a collective responsibility. How must this be done, in conclusion and in 1 minute?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that there should be a government with a public mandate. This government does not have the mandate or the public's approval to put out these budgets, and we can clearly see why the government's popularity has completely disappeared. I think after this budget it will completely disappear, and this justifies why this budget actually justifies why this government and the president doesn't have any mandate or any popularity among the public, because these are anti-people policies which they have pushed through. In a way, they have showed that this is like a populist budget, saying so many handouts, giving out so many handouts to the public, but the amount they are going to take back from the public is far greater through taxation. First thing we need is a government with a public mandate. So people will decide. They have the right, and I think they will be aware of these facts, what the budget would ultimately entail. So we need a government which reflects the public mandate. So I think that should be the first and foremost priority.
All right. Thank you very much for your perspectives, Dhanusha Pathirana, economist. Thank you, and it's back to the studio.